Last but not least, I would like to introduce, well, most of you will know very well, our director, Dr. Maureen Sier, who's the director of Interfaith Scotland. Maureen has a degree in cultural history and a doctorate in philosophy looking at religion and women, part of which was undertaken on the island of Samoa in the South Pacific. So Maureen will be speaking on the topic of kingship from the perspective of the Baha'i faith. So over to you. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone. It's been just so interesting to see all these different perspectives. And I'm really, I was quite excited even to look into this topic from my own faith tradition, because actually it's not something I've thought about very much. And in exploring it, I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed some of the resonances with everyone else. I'm going to ask Aparna if she would mind. I've also got a little kingship in the Baha'i faith, and I'll just bash on because I know that time is short. So I want to start with the first slide that just kind of summarizes the Baha'i position, which even to me was quite interesting. I didn't even know we had this position. So regard for the rank of sovereigns is divinely ordained, as is clearly attested by the words of the prophets of God and his chosen ones. A just king enjoys nearer access unto God than anyone. The majesty of kingship is one of the signs of God. We do not wish that the countries of the world should be deprived thereof. So that's a kind of an overall summary. But I want to begin by just start with a tiny bit of background to Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, just to set a context. And Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God in Arabic, was born in 1817 into one of Persia's most noble and privileged families. His father, in fact, worked for the Shah, or I guess you could say the king of Persia at that time. However, Baha'u'llah, as a messenger or prophet of God, as Baha'is would believe, challenged the authorities and was stripped of his wealth. He was imprisoned, he was tortured, and he was eventually exiled from Iran to Iraq, from Iraq to Turkey, and then eventually to the prison city of Akka in Palestine, now Israel. So for the rest of his life, he remained really, in effect, a prisoner. So because of the importance of sovereigns, in 1867, while in exile in Turkey, and then continuing later in Akka in Israel, while still a prisoner, Baha'u'llah wrote to the kings and rulers of the world at that time, including Emperor Napoleon, Queen Victoria, Kaiser Wilhelm, Tsar Alexander, Emperor Franz Joseph, Pope Pius, Sultan Abdul Aziz, and the Iranian ruler Nasruddin Shah. He urged the leaders to pursue justice and disarmament, and exhorted them to band together into a commonwealth of nations, warning them of dire consequences should they fail to establish peace. And that's something that probably people know, Baha'is and know the Baha'i community well, will know. We still harp on about having this commonwealth of nations, that the earth is like one country and humanity its citizens. But so that stems right back to when Baha'u'llah wrote to the kings and rulers. So I want to go on to the next slide, which is just, I want to share with you some of the things he said to the kings of the earth. And remember, he was talking about a just king being close to God. He said, "O kings of the earth, we see you increasing every year your expenditures and laying the burden thereof on your subjects. This verily is wholly and grossly unjust. Lay not excessive burdens on your peoples. Do not rob them to rear palaces for yourselves, nay, rather choose for them that which ye choose for yourselves. Your people are your treasures. By them ye rule, by their means ye subsist, by their aid ye conquer. And then, O rulers of the earth, be reconciled among yourselves, that ye may need no more armament save in a measure to safeguard your territories and dominion. Be united, O kings of the earth. for thereby will the tempest of discord be stilled amongst you, and your peoples find rest. Should anyone among you take up arms against another, rise ye all against him, for this is not but manifest justice. Now, I thought it would be quite interesting for you just to hear a few of the things that he actually wrote to Queen Victoria, who, when she received the letter from Baha'u'llah, responded with a reasonable amount of fairness, actually. And what she said, in effect, was, if this is of God, then his words will endure. And seemingly, Baha'u'llah responded saying that because of her fair response, she would have a long and prosperous reign. So this is some of the things that he wrote to Queen Victoria. So I'll go on to the next slide, Aparna, if that's all right. Oh, so this is just a picture of some of the kings and the rulers. And then we'll go on to the next slide. So first of all, he said, "O Queen in London, we've been informed that thou hast forbidden the trading in slaves, both men and women. This verily is what God has enjoined in this wondrous revelation. God has truly destined a reward for thee because of this." Now, it was interestingly, Queen Victoria became queen in 1937. And although the movement to end slavery began many years before, actually really it was a Christian community that was very active in the abolition of the slave trade. The process of freeing the 768,000 slaves in the British Empire lasted until 1st August 1838, so a year into Victoria's reign before all the slaves were freed. And for the rest of her reign, she continued to support the abolition of the slave trade. And also for the rest of Victoria's reign, the British believed that their empire was a force for good. Now, lots of people may question that. And it was the abolition of slavery that was of the most profound source of pride to the British people. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then he also wrote and said, "We have also heard that has entrusted the reins of council into the hands of the representatives of the people. Thou indeed hast done well, for thereby the foundations of the edifice of thine affairs will be strengthened, and the hearts of all that are beneath thy shadow, whether high or low, will be tranquilized." And what I discovered when I looked at the tablet to Queen Victoria is that one of my favourite prayers, actually, Baha'u'llah sent to Victoria, encouraging the use of this prayer. And this is the prayer. It says, "Oh my God, I ask thee by thy most glorious name to aid me in that which will cause the affairs of thy servants to prosper and thy cities to flourish. Thou indeed hast power over all things." Now, I've always thought of that as my interfaith prayer, and actually I quite often say it on a daily basis because I think about just interfaith work helping cities to flourish and people to prosper. So it was quite nice to read that this was actually within the context of a letter from Baha'u'llah to Queen Victoria. So I want to just go on to the next slide. It's a little interesting historical footnote that Queen Marie of Romania, who was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria, became a Baha'i. In fact, she was the first member of a royal family to do so. Queen Marie was one of the most popular royal figures in European history, particularly because of the significant personal risks she took treating cholera victims and the wounded during the World War. Seen in her country, across Europe and in the United States as a particularly effective leader, both before and after her husband, the King, passed away, Marie impressed the suffragettes and the women's equality advocates in the West as a woman who had used the gifts given to her to further every good purpose. And when she became a Baha'i herself, she wrote and said, "If ever the name of Baha'u'llah or Abdu'l-Baha comes to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books and let their glorious, peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your hearts as they have into mine. Seek them and be the happier." I was quite chuffed to read that she'd written that about becoming a Baha'i. So I want to end by sharing with you my experience of meeting a king. In the Pacific island of Samoa, the idea of a king or head of state is a title that can only be understood through the lens of their chiefly system known as Fa'amatai. At the apex of this system are the four major title holders known as the Tama A'enga, or the sons of the family. This affords them leadership over the royal families of Samoa. All heads of state of Samoa have been one of these four title holders. So on gaining independence from colonial powers on the 1st of January 1962, two of these title holders became joint heads of state, or kings, Malietoa Tunamafili II and Tupua Tamasese Leolofi. Now sadly, Tupua Tamasese Leolofi died in 1963. And so then the Malietoa became the sole head of state or king of Samoa for life. And he remained such until his death in 2007, aged 95. Now, in October 1967, His Highness Malietoa Tunamafili II became a Baha'i and remained a dedicated Baha'i all his life. And so it was in this context that when my husband and I went to Samoa, we were able to meet him as fellow Baha'i. So in 1995, Nick and I had the honour of meeting Malietoa Tunamafili II and presenting him with a gift, a Scottish quake, as a gift from the Baha'i community of Scotland. It was a really lovely meeting and one that I will always treasure. The Malietoa passed away on the evening of 11th of May 2007 in a hospital in Apia. And just by chance, I was in Samoa at that time for a conference. So I was privileged to be there and to witness the incredible grief, the powerful way the indigenous people of Samoa mourned their king, and to hear the tributes pouring in from all over the world. New Zealand Prime Minister at that time, Helen Clark, was one of the first to offer condolences to the people of Samoa. And she said throughout his long reign as head of state, Malietoa represented Samoa with wisdom, humour, and insight. So as a follower of the Baha'i faith, he was one of the longest reigning monarchs in the world. He was 94 years old, and of course he was greatly loved by the Baha'i community worldwide. The Universal House of Justice, the international Baha'i governing body, said, his service to the people of Samoa as head of state was distinguished by high principles, genuine compassion, and personal humility that characterized the constancy of his concern for the welfare of all. So in conclusion, through preparing this short presentation, I have decided that if a king or queen is a just king or queen and has a genuine love and concern for humanity, for their people and for humanity in general, then they can act as a powerful symbol of unity, not just for their own nation, but to the world. And I pray that the new King of the United Kingdom, King Charles III, can act as such a symbol for all of us. So thank you.